I am Lionel 35, and I built a manufacturing company worth $1.8 million from nothing but sweat and determination. Growing up in blue-collar Michigan taught me grit, but nothing prepared me for my own father, handing my life's work to my brother Marcus, just because he had kids. The betrayal cut deep, but what they never saw coming was my calculated response that would change everything. Before I tell you how I orchestrated the perfect counterattack, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear stories of family betrayal and sweet, sweet justice. I grew up in a modest neighborhood on the east side of Detroit, where most families lived paycheck to paycheck, including ours. My father Richard, now 63, worked at the same automotive plant for 35 years. He was the definition of old school, believed in hard work, family loyalty above all else, and that a man's legacy was measured by how well he provided for his family. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs in how he viewed success as something that belonged to the family, not the individual who earned it. My mother Elizabeth, 61, was the peacekeeper. Sweet and supportive, but she never challenged my father's decisions, no matter how unfair. Years of nodding and agreeing had turned her into his echo rather than his equal. I loved her, but her passivity would eventually become part of the problem. Then there was my brother Marcus, 3 years older than me at 38, the golden child despite a track record of nothing but failures and excuses. Marcus had the charm and the talk, but none of the follow-through. He married Sophia right after high school when she got pregnant with the twins Amy and Adam, who are now 9. Marcus treated fatherhood like he treated everything else, something to brag about, but not actually work at. College was my escape route. I worked 3 jobs while maintaining a full course load at Michigan State. Weekdays at the campus bookstore, evenings waiting tables, and weekends at an auto parts warehouse. Sleep was a luxury I could rarely afford, but I graduated with honors with a business degree, and only $15,000 in student debt, far less than most of my classmates. My first real job was at Detroit Precision Manufacturing, starting in sales but quickly moving up to account management. The company made specialized engine components, and I became fascinated with the manufacturing process. I noticed inefficiencies everywhere and opportunities the company was missing. When I brought these to my manager's attention, he patted me on the shoulder and said, "Just focus on your accounts, kid." That moment planted the seed. I started researching the market for specialized automotive parts, manufacturing specifically components that required precision engineering, but were currently being imported at high cost. There was a gap in the American market. For 2 years, I worked my day job while developing a business plan at night. At 25, I took the biggest risk of my life. I quit my stable job with benefits to start Precision Edge Manufacturing. I had $50,000, saved every penny I had, and took out a small loan using my used Toyota as collateral. My father thought I had lost my mind. "You're throwing away a good job for a pipe dream," he said. Marcus laughed and told me I would come crawling back within 6 months. My first workshop was a rundown warehouse space in an industrial area that had seen better days. The rent was cheap because half the roof leaked when it rained. I set up plastic tarps to protect the machinery I had scraped together, mostly used equipment I had refurbished myself. Those early days were brutal. 18-hour workdays were standard. I slept on a cot in the back office to save commute time and rent money. Every dollar went back into the business. The breakthrough came 8 months in. A local auto manufacturer needed specialized parts with a quick turnaround after their regular supplier had quality control issues. I worked 48 hours straight to fulfill that order, delivered it personally, and made sure it was perfect. That contract led to regular work, which allowed me to hire my first 2 employees. Year by year, I expanded. 1 machine became 5, 2 employees became 10, then 20, then 48. The leaky warehouse became a proper manufacturing facility. By the 10-year mark, Precision Edge was generating $1.8 million in annual revenue with clients across the Midwest and expanding into the East Coast. Every step of the growth came from calculated risks and reinvestment. While Marcus was buying a new car every other year and complaining about being broke, I drove the same Toyota until it had 200,000 miles on it. While he and Sophia took lavish vacations they could not afford, I poured everything back into growing the business. What made me proudest was not just the financial success, but creating 48 good jobs in a community that desperately needed them. Many of my employees had been with me for years. We provided health insurance, retirement plans, and profit-sharing bonuses. This was not just my livelihood, it was theirs too. What I did not have was a family of my own. Building Precision Edge had consumed me. Dating happened occasionally, but relationships always took a backseat to the business. I was 35 with a successful company, but no wife, no children, something my father never failed to point out whenever we gathered for family dinners. "All that money will not keep you warm at night, Lionel," he would say while looking admiringly at Marcus, who might have failed at every business venture he touched, but had produced grandchildren, in my father's eyes, that made him the successful son. I was about to learn just how much that perspective would cost me. The contrast between Marcus and me could not have been more stark. While I built Precision Edge through years of 7-day work weeks, Marcus bounced between jobs like they were dating prospects. Car salesman for 6 months, insurance agent for a year, regional vice president for a pyramid scheme selling nutritional supplements. Each venture ended the same way: Marcus quitting because his boss did not recognize his potential, or getting fired for increasingly thin reasons. Between jobs, Marcus would inevitably come to family dinner with grand plans. "I am thinking about opening a sports bar," he announced one Sunday. "Just need about 50,000 to get it off the ground." 3 months later, it was a food truck. Then a website development company, despite having no experience in web design. Each time my father would nod approvingly. "Your brother has an entrepreneurial spirit," Richard would tell me, as if Marcus's collection of failed starts somehow equaled my decade of building a real business. And each time Marcus needed money, which was always Dad, would slide him cash or co-sign loans that inevitably ended up back on my parents' credit card. "He is trying his best," my father would say when I questioned these handouts. "He has a family to support," as if that excused everything. As if I was somehow less worthy because I had prioritized building something sustainable before starting a family. The dynamics shifted once Precision Edge crossed the $1 million revenue mark. Suddenly, Marcus developed an intense interest in the family business. Never mind that he had mocked my little shop for years. Never mind that he had zero experience in manufacturing or business management. Never mind that it was not and had never been a family business. It was my business, built with my money, my risk, and my sacrifice. His wife, Sophia, became an ever-present shadow at family gatherings. She was beautiful in that manufactured way that required constant maintenance and someone else's credit card. Designer clothes, immaculate nails, and a smile that never reached her calculating eyes. Sophia had married Marcus expecting the comfortable middle-class life his charming promises had suggested. 10 years and 2 kids later, she was growing increasingly desperate to upgrade their lifestyle by any means necessary. The only innocent parties were my niece and nephew, Amy, and Adam. Despite everything I cared about those kids, they were sweet, curious, and deserved better than the entitled outlook their parents were instilling in them. I made sure to be the uncle who brought books instead of toys, who asked about their interests rather than their grades. They were the only reason I still attended family gatherings some weeks. When Precision Edge hit its 7th year, I offered my father a position as an advisory board member. Not because the business needed his input, but because I thought it might make him proud to be involved in what I had built. Richard attended exactly 2 meetings before declaring it too technical for his liking. Yet he never missed an opportunity to refer to our company at neighborhood barbecues. My girlfriend Jessica saw through my family's dynamic immediately. "They do not see you, Lionel," she said after her second family dinner. "They see what you can provide." Jessica was a corporate attorney I had met through a business networking event, smart and direct in a way that initially intimidated me, but ultimately became her most attractive quality. "You need to establish boundaries before this gets worse." I should have listened. The situation reached a breaking point when Marcus showed up at my office unannounced one Tuesday afternoon. He was wearing a suit that still had the tag half tucked into the sleeve, clearly purchased, just for this meeting. "I have been thinking," he announced, settling into the chair across from my desk without waiting for an invitation. "It is time I took on a leadership role here at Precision Edge." I nearly choked on my coffee. "A leadership role? You have never worked in manufacturing." "But I am family," he said, as if that was the only qualification that mattered. I am thinking VP of Business Development. I have a lot of connections. His connections were drinking buddies from his various failed career attempts, but that did not stop him from demanding a six-figure salary and a company car. When I declined suggesting he might start in sales to learn the business, Marcus stormed out. That night, my father called. Family helps family, Lionel. Your brother needs this. Despite my better judgment, I created a position for Marcus as a client relations manager, a role with clear responsibilities but limited authority. His starting salary was generous, given his lack of experience, but far below the executive compensation he had demanded. It took less than a month for the problems to start. Marcus routinely arrived late and left early, citing nebulous client meetings that never appeared in the CRM system. He took credit for contracts negotiated by other team members. Worst of all, he began making promises to clients that our production team could not fulfill, damaging relationships I had spent years building. You need to talk to Marcus. My production manager, Dave, told me after a particularly impossible rush order had been promised. He told Midwest Auto we could deliver 50 custom parts by Friday. The materials alone will take 2 weeks to arrive. When I confronted Marcus, he shrugged. I am bringing in business. Figure it out. Employees began to complain. Marcus spoke condescendingly to staff who had been with the company for years. He spent hours in his office, playing mobile games or taking personal calls. Yet he was the first to join client lunches or industry events where he could play the role of company executive. I was caught in an impossible position, protecting the business I had built while managing family politics. Each conversation with Marcus turned into a defensive blame game that inevitably resulted in calls from my father accusing me of undermining my brother's chance at success. It was becoming increasingly clear that my family viewed my business as a communal asset, something I had built for all of them to benefit from, rather than the result of my personal vision and sacrifice. What I did not yet realize was just how entitled they felt to the fruits of my labor and how far they would go to claim them. The 10-year anniversary celebration for Precision Edge was supposed to be the proudest moment of my professional life. We had transformed from a one-man operation in a leaky warehouse to a thriving business with 48 employees and $1.8 million in annual revenue. I had rented an event space downtown, invited clients, employees, and their families, suppliers, and local business leaders who had supported us along the way. The company had just secured financing for expansion into a new facility that would double our production capacity. It was a carefully calculated move that would position us to take on larger contracts with automotive manufacturers across the country. I had not shared these plans widely, yet preferring to make the announcement when the deal was finalized the following week. My father, Richard, insisted on giving a toast. I thought nothing of it. After years of indifference toward my business, he had recently shown more interest. I assumed he was finally ready to acknowledge what I had built. I could not have been more wrong. Richard tapped his glass, the sharp ping silencing the room as everyone turned toward him. He smiled broadly, placing his hand on Marcus's shoulder. When Lionel started this little operation 10 years ago, I knew he had potential, my father began. But what makes me proudest is seeing how this has become a true family business. I felt a twinge of unease but forced a smile. Richard continued. A man's legacy is not just what he builds, but who he passes it to. That is why I am so pleased to announce the next chapter for Precision Edge Manufacturing. The room was attentive now, all eyes moving between Richard and me. I noticed Marcus and Sophia exchange knowing glances, her red-painted lips curving into a smile that sent a chill through me. After discussions with both my sons, we have decided that leadership of Precision Edge will transition to Marcus over the next 3 months. With his family responsibilities and Lionel's desire to pursue other interests, this is the perfect time for a change in management. The glass nearly slipped from my hand. What discussions? What other interests? This was the first I had heard of any transition. The room fell into uncomfortable silence, employees and business partners looking at me with confusion. A toast to the future of Precision Edge under Marcus's leadership, Richard concluded, raising his glass while Marcus stepped forward, beaming with unearned pride. Sophia clutched his arm, surveying the room like a queen at her coronation. I stood, frozen humiliation burning through me as scattered, confused applause broke out. Dave, my production manager, caught my eye with a look of alarm. Jessica squeezed my hand under the table so hard it hurt, grounding me in the moment. When I could finally move again, I pulled my father aside to a private corner of the venue. "What the hell was that?" I hissed. "We never discussed any transition." Richard's expression hardened. "It is time, Lionel. Marcus has a family to provide for. You can start something new." "Start something, Dad. I built this company from nothing. 10 years of my life. It is not yours to give away." "Actually," Richard said with a smugness that made my stomach turn, "it is. Check the paperwork." Later that night, Richard revealed the full extent of his betrayal. 7 years ago, during a cash flow crisis, I had needed a loan guarantor to secure additional equipment financing. Richard had agreed to co-sign an act of support I had been grateful for at the time. What he had not mentioned was the additional paperwork he had slipped in documents that listed him as a partial owner rather than just a guarantor. "You signed everything," he reminded me in his home office, sliding a folder across his desk. "You were in such a rush to get that loan." I flipped through the papers, recognizing my signature on documents I did not remember. My hands shook with rage. "This is why you suddenly wanted to help. So you could steal my company a few years later." "Not steal," Richard corrected. "Transition to the son who needs it. Marcus has twins to put through college someday. What do you need it for? No wife, no kids, just start another business. You are good at that." The casual dismissal of a decade of my life nearly broke me. In my father's eyes, my success was simply a resource to be redistributed to the son he actually valued, not because Marcus had earned it, but because he had reproduced. "I will fight this," I warned. Richard shrugged. "You can try, but my name is on those papers and I have already spoken with the family lawyer. Make this difficult, and I will make things unpleasant. Sign over management to Marcus willingly, and you can keep a minority stake." I left my parents' house in a daze of shock and fury. Jessica was waiting at my apartment, having left the party early to give me space with my family. One look at my face told her everything. "They ambushed you," she said. It was not a question. I collapsed onto the couch, the full weight of the betrayal crushing down on me. My own father. All these years. Jessica listened as I explained the legal trap Richard had laid years ago. As an attorney, she immediately grasped the implications. "There might be ways to challenge this," she said, "but corporate family disputes get ugly and expensive, with no guaranteed outcome." I barely slept that night, staring at the ceiling, as I mentally cataloged every sacrifice I had made for Precision Edge. The relationships I had put on hold, the vacations never taken, the 100-hour work weeks, the health issues from stress, all of it stolen with a champagne toast and a folder of paperwork I had signed without proper scrutiny. By morning, something had hardened inside me. The shock had crystallized into cold, clear purpose. My father and brother thought they had won, that I would simply surrender the empire I had built to preserve family peace. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I called my lawyer first thing Monday morning. He confirmed what Jessica had warned: fighting my father's legal claim would be messy, public, and might damage the company in the process. But as I hung up the phone, I realized there was more than one way to fight. Richard might have found a loophole to claim partial ownership of Precision Edge on paper. But I knew every inch of the business in a way he and Marcus never could. If they wanted my company so badly, I would let them have it, just not the company they thought they were getting. The following Monday, I called a meeting with my father and Marcus. I projected an air of defeated acceptance, agreeing to the transition while suggesting a 3-month handover period to ensure business continuity. Richard was visibly relieved at my apparent cooperation, while Marcus barely contained his smug satisfaction. "I knew you would see reason," my father said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Family first, always." "Family first," I echoed, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. As soon as they left my office, I called Dave, my production manager, and Alicia, from accounting, the 2 employees who had been with me the longest, and whom I trusted implicitly. When they arrived, I closed the door and activated the white noise machine I used for sensitive client meetings. "I need to tell you something, and I need your absolute discretion," I began. For the next hour, I explained the situation: my father's legal maneuvering, the forced transition to Marcus, and why this would be disastrous for the company we had all built together. "Marcus will run this business into the ground within a year. Dave said, voicing what we all knew. He cannot even run the coffee machine properly. I am not going to let that happen, I assured them. Not to the company and not to the people who have worked so hard to build it. But I need your help. Over the next week, I discreetly spoke with each key employee. Not everyone needed to know the full story, but I made sure the core team understood what was happening. To my relief, loyalty ran deep. Not a single person broke confidence. Our strategy unfolded on multiple fronts. First, we began meticulously documenting every instance of Marcus's incompetence and mismanagement. His missed meetings, unfulfilled promises to clients, and complete lack of understanding of manufacturing processes created a paper trail of catastrophic leadership. Meanwhile, I worked with Alicia to subtly restructure how our client relationships were documented. The most valuable contracts were shifted to service agreements under my personal oversight rather than general company agreements. Proprietary designs and processes, the intellectual property that gave us our competitive edge, were transferred to a new entity that I privately established. Jessica helped me create a shell company called Phoenix Precision Manufacturing with her as the registered agent to avoid immediate connection to me. We leased a facility across town, the same building I had been planning to expand into. Ironically enough, the landlord, an old client who owed me a favor, agreed to keep the arrangement confidential. I met privately with our top 5 clients, people I had built relationships with over years of reliable service and problem solving. I was careful in how I framed the conversation. There are some ownership changes happening at Precision Edge, I explained to Michael from Detroit Automotive. I want to assure you that your projects will continue to receive the same attention to quality, but there may be some transition issues in the coming months. Michael frowned. We do not like transition issues, Lionel. We work with Precision Edge because of you. I understand, I said, which is why I wanted to meet personally. If you experience any problems, call me directly on my cell, day or night. Each client meeting ended similarly, with a reinforcement of personal connections that Marcus could never replicate. I was planting seeds that would sprout at the right moment. I even reached out to 3 industry competitors I had a respectful relationship with. Not to poach clients, I had too much integrity for that, but to discuss potential collaboration in the new landscape. These conversations were delicate, requiring trust built over years of fair competition. While I executed my strategic response, Marcus's arrogance grew daily. He started coming to the office in tailored suits, introducing himself to longtime employees as the new CEO. He commandeered the prime parking spot and ordered new business cards with President and Chief Executive Officer embossed in gold lettering. He even had the audacity to redecorate my office before the transition was complete. We need to project success, he explained, when I questioned the expensive new furniture delivered to what was still technically my office. First impressions matter. Richard visited weekly, nodding approvingly at Marcus's superficial changes, while remaining oblivious to the systematic dismantling happening beneath the surface. The place is already looking more professional, he commented once, gesturing to the pretentious artwork Marcus had hung in the reception area. Sophia's behavior was perhaps the most galling. She began introducing herself as the owner's wife to employees and clients alike. She dropped by unannounced, critiquing everything from the office decor to the staff dress code. Most alarmingly, she initiated a spending spree, ordering a customized luxury SUV for client meetings and remodeling their house with money they did not yet have. Behind this facade of victory, I methodically executed each phase of my counter-strategy. Equipment was moved for calibration at an external facility, equipment that would never return. Key employees were reassigned to special projects that conveniently required them to work off-site. Client files were digitized, with the most critical information finding its way to secure servers outside the Precision Edge network. The process was not without emotional cost. Each night I questioned whether I was taking things too far. Was I destroying what I had built, just to spite my father and brother? Was my pride worth potentially hurting innocent employees caught in the crossfire? Jessica became my moral compass during these moments of doubt. You are not destroying anything, she assured me. You are preserving what matters. The relationships, the expertise, the quality that makes the business valuable in the first place. Marcus and your father are the ones willing to sacrifice all that for ego and entitlement. One unexpected bright spot emerged during this dark time. My mother Elizabeth, who had always avoided conflict, visited me at home one evening. She sat at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea, looking older than her 61 years. "Your father is wrong," she said simply. "I have tried to tell him, but he will not listen." The acknowledgement nearly broke me. After decades of silent compliance with Richard's decisions, this small act of rebellion must have cost her greatly. "I am sorry, Mom." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Do what you need to do, Lionel. Just." She hesitated. "Remember the children. Amy and Adam are innocent in all this." Her words stayed with me, adding another layer to my already complex plan. My niece and nephew would suffer from their parents' poor decisions, but perhaps there was a way to shield them from the worst of it. As the official transition date approached, I made sure to spend time with the twins whenever possible. I took them to science museums, bought them books, and tried to instill values their parents neglected: the importance of earning what you receive, of treating others with respect, of building rather than taking. "Uncle Lionel, will we see you at the company when Dad is the boss?" Amy asked during one such outing. The innocent question twisted in my chest. "Things will be different," I told her honestly. "But I will always be your uncle no matter what." With each passing day, my new venture took shape in the shadows while Precision Edge was hollowed out from within. Richard and Marcus saw only what they wanted to see: a business changing hands, a legacy being passed to the rightful heir. They remained blind to the reality that what they were grasping so eagerly was quickly becoming nothing but an empty shell. As the handover date approached, my strategy shifted from preparation to execution. The careful groundwork laid over the previous weeks now enabled swift, decisive action that Marcus and my father never saw coming. The most valuable manufacturing equipment began disappearing piece by piece. A CNC machine would be sent out for calibration, but instead of returning to Precision Edge, it would be delivered to the Phoenix Precision facility across town. Computer servers were upgraded with critical data migrated to new systems that happened to be located off-premises. Marcus remained oblivious, focused entirely on the trappings of leadership rather than its substance. He spent his days rearranging office furniture and holding pointless meetings where he delivered motivational platitudes he had clearly gleaned from business podcasts. When actual operational questions arose, he deflected with vague assurances or more often found reasons to be elsewhere. "Your brother seems to be taking a lot of long lunches," Dave noted one afternoon after Marcus had disappeared for the third consecutive day following a client call that had gone poorly. "Leadership is hungry work," I replied dryly. Our most skilled machinists and engineers were gradually reassigned to special projects that required them to work at the new location. I framed these moves as expansion initiatives, which was technically true, just not in the way Marcus and Richard assumed. By the 6-week mark of our 3-month transition, approximately 60% of what made Precision Edge valuable had been transferred to Phoenix Precision. The remaining employees were divided into 2 groups: those who would eventually join us at the new company and those who would stay behind, typically newer hires or staff, in positions that were easier to replace. I ensured that no one would be left unemployed. Those staying would keep their jobs under Marcus's management at least until the inevitable decline. Those transitioning would find better opportunities, improved benefits, and equity stakes at Phoenix Precision. Richard began to sense something was amiss around the 2-month mark. He stopped by, unexpectedly, one Tuesday afternoon, frowning as he walked through the production floor. "It seems quieter than usual," he observed. "Where is everyone?" "Efficiency improvements," I explained smoothly. "We have streamlined some processes." He seemed to accept this explanation, but I caught him examining the equipment roster in Marcus's office later that day. That night, my father called. "The inventory numbers do not add up, Lionel. Equipment is missing." "Nothing is missing, Dad. We have just reorganized some things for the expansion." "What expansion?" I silently cursed. Marcus clearly had not been reading the transition memos. "The expansion we have been planning for 6 months. It is all in the reports. Ask Marcus." The resulting argument between father and son bought me another week of uninterrupted execution. Richard was furious that Marcus had been ignoring operational details, while Marcus defensively insisted he had everything under control. Neither thought to question what expansion actually meant. The client relationships I had carefully cultivated over years began bearing fruit. Our top 3 clients all coincidentally experienced quality concerns with recent orders, concerns that required their contracts to be revisited. When they called the company, they specifically asked to speak with me, not with Marcus. "I only deal with Lionel Michael from Detroit Automotive," informed Marcus bluntly, after being kept waiting for 20 minutes. "Either put him on the phone, or I am taking my business elsewhere." Marcus was forced to involve me in these conversations, unwittingly giving me the opportunity to further separate valuable client relationships from Precision Edge. Each rescued client relationship was privately informed of my new venture, with assurances of continued quality and service just under a different name. The breaking point came when Guardian Motors, our largest client, representing nearly 30% of annual revenue, canceled their contract after a disastrous meeting with Marcus. He had arrived unprepared, could not answer basic questions about their upcoming order, and then suggested a price increase with no justification. Marcus burst into my office, face flushed with panic. "You need to fix this. Call them back and tell them it was a misunderstanding." I leaned back in my chair. "I thought you were in charge now, Marcus. Isn't that what the gold-lettered business cards say? This is not funny. If we lose Guardian, the quarterly numbers will be a disaster." "I am aware of what losing Guardian means," I said calmly. "I built that relationship over 7 years." Marcus's panic quickly turned to accusation. "You did this on purpose. You poisoned them against me." I stood slowly. "I did nothing. This is the consequence of putting someone with no experience, no knowledge, and no respect for the business in charge of relationships that took years to build. This is exactly what I warned would happen." The news of Guardian's departure reached my father that evening. He was at my apartment within the hour, more enraged than I had ever seen him. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded, not bothering with a greeting. "You are sabotaging the transition, your own family." "I am not sabotaging anything," I replied evenly. "Marcus is doing that all by himself." "Fix this," Richard demanded. "Call Guardian tomorrow and get them back." "Number." The single word hung between us, the first time I had directly refused him in 35 years. "What did you say?" I said no. "I will not fix Marcus's mistakes. I will not prop up this farce anymore. You wanted him to run the company, now he can deal with the consequences of his incompetence." Richard's face darkened. "This is about your ego. You cannot stand that I chose your brother over you." Something broke inside me. All the accumulated hurt, betrayal, and anger crystallized into razor-sharp clarity. "This was never about your choice, Dad. This was about your theft. You stole my life's work and handed it to someone who did not earn it, who does not deserve it, and who cannot maintain it. And you did it because in your warped value system, Marcus deserves a free ride because he had children while I deserve nothing, despite creating something from nothing. You ungrateful." I cut him off. "The transition is complete as far as I am concerned. Marcus is now in charge of Precision Edge manufacturing, every bit of it." Richard's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What have you done?" I smiled for the first time in weeks. "Nothing illegal, if that is what you are asking. Just made sure that what you are stealing is worth exactly what you and Marcus deserve." The next day I cleared out my personal belongings from the office. As I placed the last photo in a box, Marcus stormed in, waving a stack of papers. "What is this?" "The Henderson contract is gone, and Wilson Manufacturing. And where the hell is the patent documentation for the composite fitting process?" I placed my office keys on the desk. "Sounds like you have some work to do, CEO. You cannot do this. Those are company assets. Check the paperwork, Marcus. Everything was done legally." As I walked out the front doors of Precision Edge for the last time, I heard my father's voice behind me. "This is not over, Lionel." I turned, looking at both of them standing in the doorway, Richard red-faced with fury, Marcus pale with dawning comprehension. "Actually," I said with calm certainty, "it is completely over. Congratulations on your new business. What is left of it anyway?" The full extent of my strategic execution became apparent to Richard and Marcus in the days following my departure. When Marcus arrived at work the Monday after I left, he found half the staff missing a ghost town, where a thriving manufacturing operation had once been. The remaining employees handed in their resignations one by one, citing changes in company direction as their reason for leaving. By the end of that first week, Marcus was left with a skeleton crew of mostly administrative staff and a few newer production employees, none of whom had the expertise to handle the specialized manufacturing processes our reputation was built on. Richard's threats of legal action began immediately. A cease and desist letter arrived at my apartment, followed by increasingly aggressive communications from the family lawyer. Jessica reviewed each one, her professional assessment consistent. They have no case. Everything was done by the book. The physical assets Richard and Marcus had seized, the building, some basic equipment, the Precision Edge name, were legally theirs. But the heart of what made the business valuable, the specialized knowledge, client relationships, proprietary processes, and skilled staff, had moved on. Phoenix Precision Manufacturing officially opened its doors 2 weeks after my departure from Precision Edge. Our facility was modern, efficiently laid out based on lessons learned over the past decade. 42 employees, including nearly all the senior staff and skilled machinists from Precision Edge, filled positions with improved compensation packages and profit-sharing options. Most crucially, 80% of our previous client base followed us, including all 5 top revenue-generating accounts. They came not because of contractual obligations, but because of relationships and trust built over years, things that could not be transferred in legal documents or stolen through manipulation. Marcus's desperate attempts to save what remained of Precision Edge were painful to watch even from a distance. He slashed prices to try to retain the few clients who had not yet jumped ship, cutting margins to unsustainable levels. He hired inexperienced replacements at inflated salaries, trying to recreate the expertise that had walked out the door. He even attempted to poach back former employees with promises of executive titles and benefits he could not possibly afford. Within 2 months, the financial reality hit home. Richard had to inject personal funds to meet payroll. Marcus was forced to sell his newly purchased luxury SUV. Sophia, who had been redecorating their house for the executive lifestyle she anticipated, had to cancel construction midway through. The family fractured along predictable lines. Richard blamed me exclusively, telling anyone who would listen that I had sabotaged the family business out of spite. My mother Elizabeth shocked everyone by defending my actions, leading to the first serious rift in their 40-year marriage. Extended family members and longtime family friends chose sides, with opinion roughly split between those who saw me as the villain and those who recognized the injustice I had faced. The hardest part was the impact on Amy and Adam. Suddenly, their parents could no longer afford the private school tuition. Birthday parties were scaled back. The summer vacation to Disney World was canceled. They did not understand why, only that their world had changed and that Uncle Lionel was somehow involved. I maintained my distance from the immediate family drama, channeling all my energy into ensuring Phoenix Precision's successful launch. We secured our first major new contract within a month, a parts manufacturing deal for an electric vehicle startup that would never have considered the old Precision Edge. The legal threats eventually fizzled out. As Richard's lawyer clearly explained the reality, I had not violated any non-compete clauses, which did not exist in the hasty paperwork Richard had used to claim partial ownership, nor had I misappropriated physical assets or intellectual property that was clearly company-owned. I had simply taken my personal expertise, relationships, and goodwill, things that belonged to me, not to the corporate entity. They have nothing, Jessica confirmed after their third legal threat resulted in no actual lawsuit. They know it, their lawyer knows it, and now they are just posturing to save face. 6 weeks after the split, I received an unexpected visitor at Phoenix Precision. Dave came to my office looking uncomfortable. "There is someone here to see you," he said. "Your mother with the twins." I found them in the reception area, Elizabeth looking tired, but determined, Amy and Adam wide-eyed at the machinery visible through the production floor windows. "Mom, is everything okay?" She hugged me tightly. "We were in the neighborhood. The children wanted to see what their uncle does." It was a transparent excuse. We were in an industrial park 20 minutes from their home, but I appreciated the gesture. I gave them the full tour, showing the children how the machines worked from a safe distance, introducing them to employees who greeted them warmly. "Your factory is so much cooler than Dad's Atom," said innocently, causing my mother to wince slightly. "Both places make important things," I said diplomatically. After the tour, my mother pulled me aside while the receptionist showed the twins the 3D printer in the design lab. "It is bad, Lionel," she admitted quietly. "The business is failing. Your father had to take out a second mortgage on the house. Marcus and Sophia are fighting constantly." I had expected this, but took no joy in hearing it confirmed. "I am sorry about the mortgage. I never wanted you to suffer for their poor decisions." Elizabeth shook her head. "I am not asking you to fix this. They made their choices. She hesitated. "The children. They do not understand what is happening." I looked over at my niece and nephew laughing as they watched the printer create a small plastic toy. "I have been thinking about them," I admitted. "I have some ideas." The following week, I met with my financial advisor and established college funds for both children trusts that neither Marcus nor Sophia could access or redirect. It was a significant investment, but ensuring my niece and nephew would have educational opportunities regardless of their parents' financial situation felt like the right thing to do. I also began inviting them for weekend activities, science, museums, baseball games, library visits, providing stability amid the chaos of their home life. During these outings, I never disparaged their parents, but focused on instilling values that would serve them well: the importance of integrity, hard work, and taking responsibility for one's actions. 3 months after the split, I heard through industry channels that Precision Edge had laid off its remaining staff. The following week, a foreclosure notice appeared on the building. Marcus had finally run the business completely into the ground, just as everyone had predicted. Richard suffered a minor heart attack shortly after, not life-threatening but serious enough to be a wake-up call. During his hospital stay, I sent flowers, but did not visit, respecting the boundaries that had been established. To my surprise, he called a few days after being discharged. "We need to talk," he said, his voice lacking its usual commanding tone. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Richard looked diminished, his face gray, and drawn, the events of recent months aging him visibly. "I was wrong," he said after we had sat in uncomfortable silence with our coffee. The words clearly cost him considerable effort. Not about everything, he quickly added, but about some things. It was as close to an apology as I was likely to get. I nodded, waiting for him to continue. "Marcus was not ready," Richard admitted. I thought he just needed an opportunity, that he would rise to the challenge." "It was never about whether Marcus could rise to the challenge," I said quietly. "It was about the fact that you were giving away something that was not yours to give." Richard stared into his coffee. "Perhaps." Another long silence stretched between us. "Marcus has applied for bankruptcy," he finally said. "Personal and business. He and Sophia are selling their house. They will be moving in with us temporarily." I absorbed this information without comment. The outcome had been inevitable from the moment Marcus took control, but I took no pleasure in their suffering. "What will you do now?" Richard asked. "Continue building Phoenix Precision. We are already exceeding the revenue Precision Edge had at its peak." Richard nodded slowly. "And Marcus, if he came to you?" I set my cup down carefully. "If Marcus comes to me looking for a real job, not an executive title, not a handout, but an actual position where he works and earns his way, I would consider it. Starting at the bottom like everyone else." Richard looked like he might argue, but then seemed to think better of it. "I will tell him." 2 weeks later, Marcus showed up at Phoenix Precision. Gone were the tailored suits and air of entitlement. He looked tired, humbled, and genuinely desperate. "I need a job," he said simply. "Any job." I studied my brother, searching for signs of the old Marcus, the expectation of special treatment, the shortcuts, the charm offensive. Instead, I saw something new, genuine humility. "We have an opening in the warehouse," I told him. "Loading dock. Physical work, entry-level pay, standard probationary period like any new hire." I expected anger, indignation, or at least negotiation. Instead, he just asked, "When can I start?" "Monday, 7 a.m. Do not be late." To everyone's surprise, including my own, Marcus showed up at 6:45 that Monday, and the next day, and the day after that. The transformation was not immediate or without setbacks, but it was real. Financial devastation and public failure had accomplished what years of family enablement had prevented Marcus finally growing up. 6 months after the dramatic split between Precision Edge and Phoenix Precision, the contrast could not have been more stark. The former had ceased to exist entirely, its assets liquidated in bankruptcy proceedings, its name little more than a cautionary tale in local business circles. Phoenix, meanwhile, had not just survived, but thrived, already surpassing the success of its predecessor, with annual revenue projections approaching $2.5 million. Yet financial success, while validating, proved less satisfying than I had anticipated. The victory over my father and brother had come at a cost: family relationships damaged possibly beyond repair and innocent parties caught in the crossfire. The twins especially had suffered from their parents' downfall, moving from their spacious home to my parents' cramped guest room, changing schools mid-year, and enduring the whispers and pity of former friends. I had maintained contact with Amy and Adam throughout the turmoil, becoming a stable presence in their increasingly chaotic lives. Beyond the college funds I had established, I made sure they had access to books, educational opportunities, and occasional respites from the tension at home. These moments with my niece and nephew became unexpected bright spots in an otherwise bitter victory. 4 months after starting at Phoenix, Marcus had surprised everyone with his commitment to the warehouse position. He worked consistently, complained rarely, and gradually earned the respect of coworkers who had initially viewed him with skepticism. When a junior quality control position opened up, his supervisor recommended him without prompting from me. "He has a good eye for detail when he applies himself," Dave told me, "and he actually listens now." The new role meant a modest pay increase, and more importantly, a path toward a sustainable career, rather than the executive fantasies he had previously harbored. Marcus accepted the promotion with a humility that would have been unimaginable a year earlier. Our professional relationship remained strictly formal at work, but occasional family gatherings for the twins' sake created space for tentative personal reconciliation. During Amy's birthday celebration, Marcus sought me out in the kitchen while I was loading the dishwasher. "I would have run that company into the ground even if you had left everything intact," he admitted, staring at the floor. I did not know what I did not know. It was the closest thing to an apology I expected to receive. I nodded, acknowledging the difficult admission. "For what it is worth, I offered you are doing well at Phoenix. Your QC reports are thorough." A small olive branch, perhaps, but it was something we could build on. My relationship with my father progressed more slowly. Richard's health issues following his heart attack had forced him into a more sedentary lifestyle, giving him ample time to reflect on the consequences of his actions. During a rare one-on-one lunch, he made a surprising confession. "I always felt I had failed you boys by never building anything substantial," he said. "Just a lifetime at the plant, nothing to pass down. When you created something valuable." He trailed off, unable to fully articulate the complex emotions that had driven his betrayal. "You wanted to control it," I finished for him. "To make it yours to give." He nodded slowly. "It was wrong. I see that now." While these admissions did not erase the hurt or fully repair our relationship, they created a foundation for something new. A relationship between adults with acknowledged flaws, rather than the dysfunctional dynamic that had defined us for decades. My mother Elizabeth emerged from the family crisis with unexpected strength. After decades of deferring to Richard, she had found her voice in defending my actions and supporting the twins through the transition. The shift in their marriage dynamic was visible at family gatherings. Richard now consulted her rather than dictated, and she spoke with newfound confidence. During a quiet moment at Thanksgiving, she squeezed my hand. "Sometimes things have to break before they can be fixed properly," she said. "Not just businesses, people too." Perhaps the most significant personal development came in my relationship with Jessica. Her unwavering support throughout the crisis had deepened our connection beyond what I had thought possible. On a weekend trip to northern Michigan, overlooking Lake Superior, I asked her to marry me. "Are you sure?" she asked, ever the practical attorney. "Your life is complicated right now." "For the first time, it is actually very simple," I replied. "I know exactly what matters." She said yes. Jessica transitioned from trusted advisor to full business partner at Phoenix, bringing her legal expertise and strategic thinking to the executive team. Her outside perspective helped us avoid the insularity that can plague family businesses, while her emphasis on ethical practices ensured we built something worthy of pride, beyond mere profitability. Phoenix Precision developed a corporate culture deliberately different from what Precision Edge had been. Employee ownership options, transparent decision-making, and merit-based advancement created a workplace where contribution was valued over connections. When Marcus eventually earned a management position through legitimate performance, it carried actual meaning precisely because it had not been handed to him. The experience transformed my definition of success. Building Phoenix to exceed Precision Edge financially had initially been driven by a desire to prove my father and brother wrong. But true satisfaction came from creating something more holistically successful, a business that generated profit while also enriching the lives of those connected to it, a workplace where people developed rather than simply performed. I also found greater balance in my personal life. The all-consuming work schedule that had defined my 20s and early 30s gave way to reasonable boundaries. Jessica and I set aside time for ourselves beyond the business. We traveled. We discussed starting a family of our own. I discovered there was room in my life for both professional achievement and personal fulfillment. They were complementary, rather than competing priorities. The most profound lesson emerged gradually: the difference between revenge and self-preservation. In my darkest moments during the conflict, I had wanted to destroy what my father and brother were trying to take from me. But the path I ultimately chose was not about destruction but creation, preserving what was valuable and using it to build something better. Forgiveness did not mean allowing further exploitation. Boundaries could be maintained without perpetuating bitterness. Family connections could be preserved without sacrificing self-respect. These nuanced realizations replaced the black and white thinking that had initially driven my response to the betrayal. As Phoenix Precision celebrated its first anniversary, I gathered the entire company for a statement about our future direction. Looking out at the assembled team, including many who had made the journey from Precision Edge, alongside new faces, bringing fresh perspectives, I felt a sense of purpose, transcending the painful circumstances of our founding. A year ago, we faced a choice between accepting unfairness or building something new, I told them. We chose to build, not out of spite, but because we believed in creating a business where contribution matters more than entitlement, where what you do counts more than who you know. I glanced at Marcus, standing among his department colleagues, not separate, not special, just one valued team member among many. Our eyes met briefly, mutual understanding passing between us. The most valuable things cannot be taken or given away, I continued. Knowledge, relationships, integrity. These are earned through consistent action, not transferred through paperwork. Our success proves that. As I concluded my remarks and the team dispersed to enjoy the anniversary celebration, I reflected on the journey from betrayal to renewal. The empire I had built had indeed been handed to my brother, but what emerged from that painful transaction was something more valuable than what had been lost. A business aligned with my values, family relationships based on truth rather than obligation, and personal growth that would not have been possible without the crisis that forced it. What do you think you would have done in my situation? Would you have fought differently or taken another path entirely? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more experiences like this one, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself can lead to something better than what you're fighting to keep. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the greatest success comes after what feels like devastating loss.